1,950 Australian dollars. That's the price for a Category 1 ticket for the Rugby World Cup final in 2027. And the man that's running the tournament says that's a fair price to pay for it. In South African rands, at today's exchange rate, it's 23,186 rands for one game, one seat, 80 minutes. And here's the kicker. South Africa, the most successful side ever at a Rugby World Cup tournament, 4 times world champions, cannot even afford to bid to host the tournament. So today, in this video, I'm going to follow the money from Dublin all the way to Sydney to Cape Town and tell you exactly what's going on. So this week, guys, the Age newspaper in Melbourne published an article about the World Cup tickets. They went on sale. The second batch went on sale this week. The first batch, there was delays of up to 10 hours for people, and people complained. But that's not the point. They say they've sorted it out. But the headline grabbing number there was that price for a ticket at the Rugby World Cup final next year, 1,950. That's the most expensive it's ever been to watch a World Cup final. Now, you may say it's a World Cup final. It's a premium event. You expect it to be expensive. But I think the problem here is not just the price of it. It's how it's being justified and how it's being sold to fans. Because the defense of that price is where I want to start. Because it tells you everything about where rugby is going and where the World Cup is going. The head of the 2027 Rugby World Cup Committee says, and this is a direct quote, that the 1,950 Australian dollars price is a fair cost for a premium event and helps unlock more affordable tickets at other World Cup games too. Now, that's a very specific piece of economic logic, and there is some truth to it. The expensive end subsidizes the cheaper tickets. That's what happens. World Rugby has done that. For instance, the World Rugby is committed to 1 million tickets under 100 Aussie dollars. Pool matches start at $40 for adults and $20 for children. So if you just genuinely want to go watch a rugby game for the sake of watching a World Cup rugby game, you can afford it. And that's not nothing. That's a bit of a commitment from World Rugby, and it's good for them to do that. But here's my problem with the whole argument that it subsidizes the cheaper seats. That $1,950, 23,000 Rand, that's not a hospitality ticket. That's just a bucket seat in the stadium. A Category 1 ticket, it's a good ticket. Category 1 ticket in the stadium to watch one game for 80 minutes. Don't even get me started on the hospitality, because those prices are even more ridiculous. Some of them start at 300,000 Rand for a ticket. This ticket is not a corporate suite. It's not a glass of champagne and a 3-course meal. It's literally a ticket in the stands, 23,000 Rand. Now let's put that a bit in perspective. In South Africa, the average take-home salary is 8,000 Rand a month. That means that one ticket would cost the average person in South Africa 3 months' salary. And even if you're above that salary and you're earning a lot more, that's still a lot of money for a ticket for one game. I'm not saying that these tickets need to be priced for every market for a premium event like that. But I'm saying that when you look at the language that's being used and the way it's being defended, there's a definite trend here. Let's make a comparison here, because in less than a month's time, the FIFA World Cup kicks off in America. Fan groups are up in arms. Fans all over the world at the pricing are up in arms. The pricing there has caused a genuine global revolt. The fan group Football Supporters Europe even filed a lawsuit with the European Commission about following your team from the group stages right through to the final costs approximately 5 times more than it did in Qatar 4 years ago. That's ridiculous. The cheapest tickets the general public can access are $380. That's 6,900 Rand. A semi-final Category 1 ticket costs $11,000. That's 201,000 Rand. FIFA calls it market rate pricing. Fans call it something totally different. But okay, that's FIFA. But let's get back to what I really want to talk about here. Not about the price of a ticket, because it puts things in perspective, but about the cost of hosting a Rugby World Cup. Because this puts everything into perspective. And this puts also a lot of the public statements we hear from people like Gayton McKenzie, our Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture. It puts it into perspective. It makes it so complicated. World Rugby's total financial model is based on the World Cup. 80% of their revenue comes from the World Cup every 4 years. That's going to fund the game across the globe. And because of that, World Rugby has specific requirements that you have to do to host a World Cup. Specific guarantees you have to give. For example, the government has to give government-backed guarantees for certain finances. You have to cover infrastructure upgrades for the stadiums. Then you have to cover transport. And then as the host nation, you have to cover security, transport, and operations. All that out of your own budget. They take the entire global sponsorship budget, the TV broadcast rights, and a huge part of the commercial money that goes into the World Cup. What does the host country get left with? A share of the ticket sales, the tourism boost that comes with the World Cup, and the prestige of hosting it. That's it. So what does that look like in practice? Well, Japan in 2019 ran an almost nearly perfect tournament. They sold 99.3% of the tickets available. That generated approximately 343 million US dollars from ticket sales alone. That's a remarkable number. That's even more than what World Rugby had to bail Australia out for in COVID. And it's also part of the reason why Australia got the next World Cup. Not because they wanted to boost them, not because the finances were needed that boost, but because World Rugby knew they would make money out of it. And that's the bottom line. The economics drive everything at the World Cup. And this is where France 2023 becomes a very important case study when you talk about these things. I think we can all agree France hosted a brilliant tournament. There were 2.4 million tickets sold. The Springboks lifted the trophy for the fourth time. South Africa rejoiced. It was an enthralling tournament. 3 one-point victories on the way to the final. Seriously, our nerves were shot. But what a wonderful tournament it was. And for those who got to watch it, how lucky they were. According to all the metrics, global broadcast figures went through the roof. Every single metric that you can measure it on was deemed a remarkable success. Even France's own state watchdog said World Rugby achieved the best financial result in its history, the best result ever. But the French Rugby Federation, the people who were actually running the tournament, made a massive loss. The loss was calculated to be between 19 and 29 million euros, 80 million. Some estimates put it even higher, at around 640 million. And that's for the host. While the world governing body was banking all the money and making the biggest profit it ever could, that was massive losses for the French Federation. As the French Court of Accounts president put it, everyone won except the organizers. The same French court found that the French Rugby Federation had given, in their words, unrealistic commitments to World Rugby to secure the hosting of the tournament. We all remember the controversy about how South Africa lost out on hosting that as well. They overpromised on where they could deliver commercially, and when they couldn't hit those numbers, they absorbed the loss while World Rugby banked the profit. Now, listen, we know France is a wealthy country. It's a sophisticated rugby system. It's got world-class infrastructure and a very rich rugby league. And still, they made such a massive loss. So when SA Rugby President Mark Alexander says, I think it would be unfair on government to put up guarantees, this is precisely the context he's speaking about. The France 2023 experience is a cautionary tale for rugby administrators. They're reading the fine print. They're looking at what's going on. And here's where the story gets very real for South Africa. The last time we bid for a World Cup, the 2023 one that France won, the total cost of that bid was 6.8 billion rand. Government had to put up a guarantee of 4 billion rand just to make the bid. That's not spent, that's just guaranteed, like a deposit. And they still lost to France, who had more money, a better infrastructure, and more corporate hospitality money. Now, that was 2023. By the time the next World Cup bid comes around for the 2035 World Cup, those expectations from World Rugby are going to be much higher. That amount for the guarantees is going to be much higher. And the costs are going to be much higher. That's why SA Rugby quietly walked away from that table without even entering the room. I was at a press conference earlier this year where Riaan Oberholzer, the CEO of SA Rugby, was asked the question. And he said, World Rugby will drive World Cups to where they believe they can make the most money. We all have to understand that. And you cannot complain and ask for a World Cup in your country, make less money, and then want a bigger slice of the cake when it comes to the annual grant. That's an extraordinary quote from his CEO. He's essentially saying, World Rugby is a commercial enterprise. They go where the money is. South Africa isn't where the money is. Mark Alexander was even more direct. He said, we are a third world country. Our economy is not strong and we have to act responsibly. I will tell SA Rugby not to pursue this. There's other stuff more urgent than the World Cup. I know sport does a lot for social cohesion, but I think it would be unfair on government to put up guarantees. That's the man responsible for running South African rugby, telling his own organisation not to bid for the World Cup. Which brings me back to our Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Gayton McKenzie. He's a very interesting guy. He's got a lot of energy and he's very passionate about sport. Whatever you think of his politics, he certainly gets around and makes noise. For the department that was traditionally extremely quiet, he's certainly somebody who likes to be in the limelight. But here's the tension. This week, Gayton McKenzie said he will not rest until South Africa hosts the World Cup again. It's a crowd-pleasing comment. It's very emotional, without question. But when you put it against the reality that what Oberholzer and Mark Alexander have said, there's a big disconnect. It sounds less like a plan. It sounds less like a plan and more like a press release. McKenzie has already said he wants to get 200 to 400 billion from sponsors, private donors, and then ask government for 3 billion in guarantees. But remember, in 2023, we had to put up 4 billion. So that won't even cover the deposit. And it's not just the Rugby World Cup. The Formula One Grand Prix was another thing that Cabinet approved and Gayton McKenzie was very vocal on. And then suddenly they weren't anymore. The department, in its own words, had underestimated what was required. That phrase is doing a lot of work because Formula One costs are quite public. They're published. You know what they are before you go in it. So it tells you somebody didn't do their homework. The feasibility study wasn't done. And that's a bit of a pattern when it comes to the sports ministry in this country. It's easy to say these popular things, but the reality is something else. Look, I want to be clear. I'd love us to host another World Cup. 1995 was a seminal moment, a magical moment in this country's history. It's one of the defining moments of South Africa's post-apartheid. Unfortunately, you've got to face realities at times. We've got to do things responsibly in this country. I understand why people want it back, but doing one thing and acting responsibly to do it is another. Okay, so let's take one step away from the politics and talk about if you want to go to the World Cup next year. If I was you, I'd already start my planning now because that part matters. The World Cup rugby final is one of the most scalped ticket events in sport in the world. Just looking at some of the figures here, in Japan 2019, a face value category A ticket cost the equivalent of $794. On StubHub, the week of the final, they were going for $25,000. It's a 1,700% markup, more or less. Not a typo. World Rugby's been warning people around that every single tournament. They'd say that if you're going to buy tickets from places that aren't the official suppliers, you might be turned away from the games. And people were turned away from the games. For 2027, they've appointed, as with every World Cup, official travel agents. And there's a reason why you book through these guys. Because, at the end of the day, when you flying all the way to Australia, it's a premium event. You want to be assured of your ticket. These travel operators guarantee your ticket for the game. They also sell you accommodation and transfers and things like that. But at least you guaranteed your game. You got a genuine ticket and you're getting there. Now, if you're lucky enough to get on the ballot and get tickets that way, great. Perfect way of doing it. If you've got friends in Australia that can get for you, or you find it some other way through a corporate or that sort of thing, that's also... That if Gayton McKenzie actually has his dream and we get a miraculous bid for the World Cup and we win the World Cup, what will ticket prices cost in South Africa? How will South Africans afford it? Because remember when World Rugby hosts the tournament, they host it to maximize global revenue. It's a money game for them. They want to make as much of it as they can in the tournament. And it means tickets are set for international wallets, not South African wallets. Bob also said it himself at that press conference. If South Africa hosts the Rugby World Cup and World Rugby loses money, then not only South Africa loses money, but every rugby nation on earth loses money. That's the brutal reality of what the Rugby World Cup has become. It's been the same reality that FIFA's been operating on for years. And in FIFA's case, the fans are screaming blue murder. And here's the cold data about every top ticket at the Rugby World Cup since 2003. In Australia, 2003, the top ticket was $300, about 1350 rands in today's terms. By 2007, it was 400 euros, 3,800 rand. New Zealand 2011, 1,250 New Zealand dollars, 6,400 rand. England 2015, £715, 15,000 rand. Japan 2019, £794 or 13,100 rand. France 2023, 950 euros, 19,000 rand. In Australia 2027, $1,950, 23,186 rand. That's not a straight line upward. And of course, you've got to take into account that the rand volatility has also contributed to that. But in every market that's hosted the World Cup, the price has gone one way, and that's upward. 2027's top ticket price is the biggest jump between tournaments in history. And there's every indication it's only going to get worse. And that's not even counting the cost of people who find other ways of getting tickets. Because if you didn't get on the ballot or through an official tour operator, the cost of a ticket to the Rugby World Final is huge for anybody. So is rugby heading down FIFA's road? Well, my honest answer is yes, but they're quite a far away, a couple of miles behind them. But that's still cause for concern. The pricing gap between the cheapest ticket in Australia and the most expensive, that's $20 to $1,950, is extraordinary. That tells you rugby's trying to serve two masters, the grassroots accessibility and the corporate gouging. For now, rugby's managed better than FIFA, but only just. And with the next World Cup in America, that could easily change. The direction is clear. The language that they're using, a fair price for a premium event, is the same language FIFA uses. And once that logic takes hold at the top of the ticket, and once that logic takes hold, it never comes down. So here's where I land. The 2027 Rugby World Cup is going to be spectacular. There's every chance the Springboks will be in the final. They're going for a three-peat, their 5th World Cup, and Rassie Erasmus has got an exceptional team that's number 1 in the world. So I hope every South African that has a chance gets there. Take into account, do your planning, and make sure you know what you're paying for. But the conversation about hosting the Rugby World Cup has got to be honest. It's got to be fact-based, and it can't be emotional. The sports minister's passion is real, but the reality is something totally different. That's my thoughts. Drop your thoughts below. I'd love to read your comments there. Do you think we should risk it all and go for another World Cup? Is there any other way you can see us doing it? And are you going to the World Cup next year? And if you are, how are you going? Let me know in the comments. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. And as always, thumbs up helps us with the algorithm. But thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.